So you may have heard that Lauren Southern and Stefan Molyneux did a tour in Australia, and then they wanted to do a tour in New Zealand, but nobody would provide them with a venue. Nobody would give them a platform because they didn't like their views, which, I mean, if you're a private venue and you don't want to give views or provide a platform to someone with atrocious views, then that's fine. Like, for example, if I had a venue and Antifa wanted to speak, like a group of Antifa people wanted to host someone there and have a speech, I'd probably not do it just because it's Antifa and I couldn't trust them to not be absolutely awful. But then again, as long as it was peaceful, generally I'd give a platform to just about anyone. But that's just my personal opinion. Anyone has the right to reject. But the thing is, with Stefan Molyneux and Lauren Southern, they don't have views that radical. They're not far right. I wouldn't consider them far right. I would consider them moderate right, but they're not what people think they are. And Newshub, which is a New Zealand news website, has an article here called "What Do Far-Right Canadian Speakers Stefan Molyneux and Lauren Southern Believe?" This is by Emma Hurley. Now, lately I've gotten in the habit of saying, like, let's stop attacking the media and media outlets, and let's start looking at who's actually writing the articles, starting to look at the journalists. Because, again, if I'm a media outlet, I can post something like, as long as it's an opinion piece, I can post something by awful people and not support their views necessarily. So I'm of the idea now that Newshub, I mean, it's their responsibility, and the fact that they published a hit piece that lies and slanders people is on them. But I'm focusing more on, hey, Emma Hurley here, this writer doesn't seem to be very concerned about providing actual truth, actual reporting, and actual journalism, and instead just wants to slander people that she disagrees with, which is stupid and awful. Absolutely awful. But yeah, this was written, looks like, over back in July 20th. But let's see what she thinks they actually believe. Now, Lauren Southern, I don't follow too well. I know a bit about her. I don't follow her too well. But Stefan Molyneux, I've listened to like over 1,000 of his 4,000 shows. And I like a lot of what he has to say. Obviously, I don't agree with him on everything, but I've listened to quite a bit about him, and I respect him greatly. So the article says, far-right activists Stefan Molyneux and Lauren Southern are set to visit New Zealand next month to do a public talk. They planned an event in Auckland on August 3rd, but no venue has been set, and they've been banned from any Auckland council-owned venues. The immigration minister has labeled their views repugnant. So who are these people? What do they believe? Well, Stefan Molyneux. Stefan Molyneux, 52, is a YouTuber, writer, and host of a lengthy Q&A style radio segments called Free Domain Radio. That's somewhat accurate. I mean, he does do Q&A style radio segments on Free Domain Radio, but that's a good third of what he does. A third of what Free Domain Radio is. He has 338,000 followers on Twitter and over 800,000 subscribers on YouTube, but is less well known than Lauren Southern. That is, as far as I can tell, accurate. His most recent YouTube video is called "Wait, What? You're Thinking About Marrying a Feminist? Seriously." So this is one of those, you can tell the woman's a feminist because the hope of writing this, of including that in the article, is just to say, like, wow, look at this, look at these horrible views. But she did link to the video, which I respect. Good on her, letting people judge for themselves. He believes some races are genetically superior to others, which is completely false. He has stated that multiple times. That is not what he believes. That is not what he is saying. And he has never said anything like that. That is absolutely false. And especially when you're saying, like, when you're throwing on such a big accusation, you can tell Emma Hurley did not do her research. She's just interested in slandering the guy. So she's an activist, not a journalist. Molyneux believes what race you are strongly influences your IQ. I mean, strongly there is inaccurate, I would think. He simply says there is a link between race and IQ, which, as far as I can tell from the science, is true. I've read a lot on it, and it's true. That turns out, like, to say otherwise is really to just deny evolution, basically, is to be a science denier, is deny this, because you're saying that when you take a group of people, or two groups of people, and you separate them, put them in two different environments, and then separate them for thousands of years, they're going to be different. Now, not different morally, not different in terms of inferior or superior. They're going to be adapted to their specific environments. So basically, hey, you take a bunch of people, you have them in Africa for thousands and thousands of years. They're going to develop a darker skin tone because of the climate there and the environment. And then, or actually, I should rephrase that. In fact, that actually they kept because I believe the early humans were actually were black, but they kept their skin tone, and they focused on adapting to their local environment. And then you have another group of people who went further north to colder climates, and the theory is supposedly that they had to be able to delay gratification. They had to be able to, like, that intelligence was more of a pressure there. Like, the environment pressured higher intelligence because you needed to save for the future. You needed to be able to be able to contemplate the idea of saving food for the future, or you wouldn't survive winter. And now, just because someone has an IQ doesn't make them genetically superior. Because, again, IQ is just one aspect. And to say superior, I mean, is having a higher IQ morally superior? Like I don't know what they mean by genetically superior. Like, is a higher IQ genetically superior? I don't follow. Like, there is no moral judgment that can be made here. And that's the difference between Stefan Molyneux and, like, actual racists, is that there is no moral judgment here, whereas racists would make a moral judgment. And on top of that, Stefan Molyneux is an individualist, whereas actual racists tend to be more collectivist. He's not saying that, like, oh, you're black, you're not as good as a white person. That is nowhere even close to what he is saying. He is saying that there are trends. That the average IQ of a certain group and the average IQ of a different group are different. Therefore, anything that influences IQ, you will expect to be different. So, like how he says, and your IQ strong, or how the article says, and your IQ strongly influences how economically successful or criminally violent you are. That is true. Like, that, as far as I can tell, is true. That if you have a lower IQ, you're more likely to be violent. If you have a higher IQ, you're more likely to be economically successful. That's just how it is. Now, what's the point of this information? What's the point of even talking about it? Well, in your daily life, there is no point. There is absolutely no point, because the data doesn't suggest that, like, if you meet someone black and you meet someone white, that there is a incredibly likely scenario, or that it is incredibly likely that the white person will be somehow superior or smarter. That's just not true. That's just not true, and Stefan Molyneux's not saying that. He's saying that if you take groups of people, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people, you take these groups and you take the average, there is a slight variation. And that's not racist. That's not saying they're genetically superior or inferior. That's just, to look at this is in that way, it's just a very narrow-minded way of thinking. You can tell Emma Hurley has never actually, like, looked at these ideas. You can tell she's never actually looked at the research, because this is her conclusion here. Like, oh, either everyone is exactly equal and evolution is not a thing, because, again, to say that, like, separating groups does not change anything over thousands of years is to say there are no evolutionary pressures, which is just outright science denial. Or she's never seen this research, because this seems to be her way of interpreting it. So she's never actually, like, looked into things. You can tell she doesn't understand what she actually thinks. She was just out, or what he actually thinks. She was just out to write a hit piece. But yeah, it's just not true. The whole point of talking about it is to say, okay, if you have two groups of people and they aren't exactly equal in crime statistics, or they're not exactly equal in economic success, you just have to, like, you can look at IQ, you can look at various other genetic factors, you can say that is an influence. Now, that isn't the only influence, that's not the entire reason, but when you're doing research on groups and you're finding that they're not equal, the question becomes, why aren't they equal? People automatically jump to the conclusion that it's discrimination. What Stefan Molyneux is saying, it's not discrimination. And in fact, if you watched his interviews, like, there's a good interview with Dave Rubin, and there's another one that I can't think of who it was with, but he was talking, like, they were talking about the race and IQ stuff, and he's saying it would be the greatest thing in the world. It would be so much better. It would be so awesome if this wasn't true. It would be so awesome if the data just said everyone is equal across the board, because then it's an easy problem. Then it is discrimination. We can target discrimination, and then we can stop it. It would be so much better. But what he's saying is the sad truth is that that's not the case. And if you're focusing entirely on discrimination and not the facts, then you're never going to solve the problem. And he's trying to solve the problem. You can tell Emma Hurley's not interested in solving problems. She's just interested in slandering and painting people as a racist if they try to make the world a better place. According to the racist pseudoscience he teaches, again, that's not an argument. That's just, as he would say, that's not an argument. That's just a accusation that's totally unfounded. White people are ranked higher than the likes of black people, Arabs, and Latinos. And again, depends what you mean by ranked. Ranked in terms of IQ? Sure. Ranked as genetically superior? No. Ranked as morally better? No. Like, that's the thing. Like, she's grouping everything together. She's not seeing the nuance of it. She's not distinguishing it. She's making huge accusations and talking about things that you can tell she has not done her research on. So he has reportedly claimed that mothers are responsible for men who grew up to be violent. I mean, that's a generalization, but not entirely inaccurate. At a men's rights conference in 2014, Mr. Molyneux said mothers were responsible for violent men as they have an almost universal control over childhood. That part is pretty much true. Again, it's not the all mothers thing. It's saying like, hey, men are violent. Some men are becoming criminals. Some men are becoming violent. Some men are doing bad things. And when you look at things like, and when you look at their childhoods, you see that usually they were raised by single mothers. It's something like I can't remember the exact statistic, but it's the vast majority of like school shooters have horrible family lives. They either don't have like a loving family, or they're raised by a single mother. And it's like, it's not like the single father thing. If they were raised by single fathers, I don't know what the statistics would be. It might be just as bad. But the fact is, it seems that all of these like horrible people that are committing crimes and being violent and have messed up emotional trauma and violent trauma in their history, it's because they were being raised by single mothers. And obviously he was raised by an absolutely horrible single mother, an absolutely horrible human being. And of course to say that like, to say like if a father left a child alone, like if a father got a woman pregnant and left the child, obviously it's the woman's fault for getting pregnant, but it's also the father's fault for just abandoning the child. So it's not like he's just saying like, oh, fathers are perfect, they have done nothing wrong. But he's pointing out the obvious issue that it's like, hey, all these horrible people are being raised by single mothers. There might be a trend there. There might be, that might be part of it. And all he's advocating for, the point isn't to say like mothers are horrible. The point isn't to say that women are awful people, mothers are awful people, and they should be punished or anything, or they should be shunned. That's not the point. The point is to say, treat your children better. And I find that interesting because that's his whole point, is just to say, treat your children better. Let's focus on good parenting. Let's focus on like raising children the right way, being better parents. And I find it interesting that Emma Hurley decides to take or looks at his stuff. If she actually did do the research, which it doesn't look like she did, if she looked at what he said, and his basic point is we should be better parents, and we should focus on being better mothers to our children, for the people that are mothers, focus on better childcare. And the author of this article is just like, well, how can I twist this to make him seem like a horrible person? We can't have that. We can't have him trying to influence better parenting. So it's just like, this is such a big example of people that are just, you try to do something good in the world and people attack you. It's like, this woman has not read what she says. This woman that wrote the article, I'm not saying like go send her hateful messages or anything. I should say, luckily my channel is small enough that I don't think anyone would do that. But if anyone watches this video and thinks to like contact her, do anything awful, don't do that, because that makes you just as bad, basically. Like, you're not increasing conversations. You're not having a conversation. And if you're trying to talk to someone in any other way than having a genuine conversation, just don't do it, honestly. But the whole reason I'm even doing this video and saying this woman is not doing her job is I'm just calling her out for saying she's ruining the conversation. She's ruining people trying to make the world a better place. It's like these people are trying to have conversations, talk about issues, and this woman has decided to lie about people. That goes against talking to people. That goes against having conversations, discussing issues, and being peaceful, really, because that's what it's down to. The more people talk, the more peaceful it is. Like, if people talk, they're not fighting. If people are understanding what the opposing side is, by talking to one another, they're not being violent. So that's my whole point with making this video. If we could just get people to be nice to their babies for 5 years straight, that would be it for war, drug abuse, addiction, promiscuity, sexually transmitted diseases, he said. True. I think that's true. And even if it isn't entirely true, it's certainly a big factor. It would certainly be a big part. And almost all would be completely eliminated because they all arise from dysfunctional early childhood experiences, which are all run by women. Again, generalizations, but for the most part, true. Again, school shooters, disproportionately raised by single mothers that have a bad childhood, like they aren't getting the care they deserve from their parents. You don't see people that rise up from a perfectly great family like that loved them and nurtured them in all the right ways, go shoot up schools. You don't see that. So that's the whole point of this. Like, he's trying to stop school shootings. At least that's one of the things he's trying to do. And this woman doesn't seem interested in that. There's a clip from his YouTube channel. The rise and fall of Western culture. I don't see an issue with that. Wrong think, the architecture of belief, the ugly truth about diversity. I see nothing wrong with that. Those are all good titles. Of course, they're all just titles and not actual conversations and videos. You have to actually watch them to figure out what's going on. He says women are responsible for men who harm their families. Women who choose assholes guarantee child abuse, he says in a YouTube video. All the cold-hearted jerks who run the world came out of the vaginas of women who married assholes. I don't know how to make the world a better place without holding women accountable for choosing assholes, he says in a segment called The Matriarchal Lineage of Corruption. That's mostly true. Like, that's pretty much true. I see nothing wrong with that. There's more of his videos. So that was it for him. Yeah, basically her point was Molyneux believes that women are terrible, or that mothers are terrible human beings, and that white people are superior. Though he actually didn't say, oddly, I don't think she actually did state that he thinks white people are superior. He just said some races. But then, oh yeah, right here, then goes to say white people are ranked higher than likes of black people, Arabs, and Latinos, which, yeah, the whole thing was totally false. Basically, the article, as someone who listens to a lot of his show, it's totally false. I mean, I don't have to endorse his views, which, I mean, for the most part, I agree with him here. I don't have to endorse him to figure out what's true and what's not. That's the thing. So, Lauren Southern. Now, again, I have clarified that I don't follow Lauren Southern that closely, but I've already read the article, and I know there's a few things I can comment on. She used to work for the Rebel Media, that's true, but now she's independent. Maybe many of your YouTube videos have millions of views. She supported an alt-right group stopping rescuers saving migrants at sea. Ms. Southern threw her support behind a group called Generation Identity, who target activist groups who rescue migrants by intercepting them on the water and turning migrants them back to their countries of origin. I don't think that's good grammar. Maybe I'm just reading it wrong. She attended a protest action with the group in 2017. I just want people to not cross borders illegally, obey the freaking law, she says. Now, good on the... Some people don't do that. Good on the writer for at least linking the sources. But I will fully concede I haven't watched this too closely, but I have heard her defend it. And she says basically she wasn't like trying to get people to drown. She wasn't trying to kill people. She wasn't trying to she wasn't stopping rescue boats. She was stopping child traffickers. She was stopping, well, not just child traffickers. She was stopping human traffickers. Let me clarify. She was stopping human traffickers. And that was it. But she pretended to be gender transitioning as part of a stunt. Yes. And the stunt was, there's nothing wrong with the stunt. The stunt was entirely accurate. In Canada in 2016, she visited a doctor saying she was a gender non-binary person. I don't think that was true. I'm pretty sure she said she was trans, but I haven't watched the video in over a year. Asking for a doctor's note to be able to change her gender identification. That is true. The YouTube video, Lauren Southern Becomes a Man, was a stunt to demonstrate that it's easy to legally change your gender on documents. Ms. Southern says this is bad because it means people can be dishonest about their gender. Which, I mean, it was a good stunt. Like, she proved the system is messed up. She went to a doctor. I mean, just looking as she is now, there's a picture of her right now, just looking how she is, and said, I want to be a man. And the doctor was like, okay. And that was it. She went to, then she went to the, whatever the Canadian equivalent of the Department of Motor Vehicles is. Maybe that's what that's called. And got it changed on her driver's license. She is legally a man. So, and that's the whole thing. She actually, you should see, she makes very good points. Like, this was actually a important thing. Not important, this was a vital thing, what she did. Because you can see in later videos, she goes around, people are saying, like, people are misgendering her, and she calls them out on it, and they're like, oh, well, I don't know what to say. Because by their own logic, they have to, they just misgendered her, they were terrible people, and misgendering her, they have to acknowledge her as a man. And that's the thing, it literally was just a stunt to show how messed up the system is. So, I mean, this isn't slander here, really. It's just what's true. It's good on, I guess, good on the writer for being true, although I can tell the writer meant this to be a hit piece. Meant this to be like an attack on her, but it wasn't. She called Black Lives Matter a terrorist group. At times, it really does feel like Black Lives Matter is more an ethnic terrorist group organization than a political movement. It's mostly true. It's not entirely a terrorist group. They don't go around bombing people. But there are segments of the group that go around attacking cops. And that's awful. Like, that's pretty much, like, they go around spreading political violence. You've seen the videos. What do we want? Dead cops. Like, that is not what a peaceful movement says. Black people are convinced by the media that they're living in a system where everything white people do is trying to oppress them, she told Vice last year. So yeah, like this, other than the first thing, which was totally false, the second part is pretty much true. Some people find that controversial, but it's for the most part true. True is in like accurately, she's accurately representing Lauren Southern. She said diversity is a weakness. In her self-published book, Barbarians, Ms. Southern wrote that her generation needs to accept diversity is not a strength, it's a weakness. Its legacy is not peace and love, but division and hate. That's mostly true. Like, again, people don't seem interested in diversity of ideas. Now, I can't remember the book I read this from. I actually think it was Seven, it was the one self-help book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which, it's an okay book. I did a review on it, if you want to just look it up. It's an episode of 3-minute review. I think it's number 21. I can't remember, but I'll leave it in the description. But the book actually did has a very great segment there, which says, hey, diversity can be a good thing as long as everyone's on the same page. Like, different perspectives, different views are great. Different ideas, like different backgrounds, are a great thing, so long as everyone's on the same page. I mean, diversity is not... You can't say diversity is a good thing when we're talking about diversity of, like, opinions of whether women have rights or not. That's the thing. Like, you wouldn't say that, hey, we need a few white nationalists in universities because that's diversity. We need a few, and of course, you see people making the point that diversity just means anti-white, which is actually true. Because you can see pictures, like plenty of journalists. I should say plenty, but at least 2 or 3. I can think of 2 or 3 off the top of my head. 3 that say they'll take a picture of a whole group of people, and none of them are either white or male, and they'll comment, "Look at the diversity here." And like they did that one. There was one with there was a picture of all the Huffington Post writers, and it was the point it was suggesting that, like, hey, look how diverse the Huffington Post staff is, and there wasn't a single man there, and it's just like, so you don't hire men? Like, how is that diverse? And then there was another one where they took there was a group of black women. They were all black women, and they were saying how diverse it was. It's like, that's not diverse. It's a group of everyone of the same race and gender. That's not diverse. At least in the context they're referring to. Maybe they all had different views, which would be diversity of thought. But yeah, diversity is only a good thing when at least everyone's on the same page. Of course, same page of like, hey, we generally want human rights. And that's the thing. Like, you can't just take a bunch of people and say, like, you can't just throw in a Muslim person and say something's automatically better. It might be. It might be, it might not be. I don't know. Like, You can't just take a group of people and throw in someone of a different race or religion and say things will be better. It might be. That's the thing. It might be. But unless they got to where they are on a purely meritocratic basis, I think that's a word. Unless they got to their place based on merit, you can't say for sure. And that's the great thing I've seen about, like, you see certain, like, conservative groups, liberalist groups, all kinds of, like, right-wing groups. They're not focused on diversity. They don't do diversity hires. They don't care about diversity of, like, race or gender at all. And yet they are surprisingly diverse, actually. Like a lot of what I watch, I don't care if people are, like, I don't search for, like, token accounts. I don't make sure that what I watch has at least, like, one person of every race. I don't make sure they have trans people in them or, like, different races or, and certain amount of LGBT people. I don't look for that. Like, I don't factor that into my thought. And yet I watch plenty of trans, like, YouTubers. I watch plenty of liberal, conservative YouTubers. I watch plenty of black YouTubers, like white YouTubers. The diversity thing sorts itself out automatically, and I'm not even focused on it. But yeah, that's my whole point of that. She's not wrong. She said Islam is dangerous, but some Muslims can be cured. Muslims can, she put cured in quotation marks, which is interesting. Like, Muslims can no doubt be decent and noble people, just as tame wolves do exist. The fact is that Islam, the religion, is by nature dangerous to the West, she says in her book. That is true. Like, that is factually true. It's not racist, because I find it odd that people say it's racist, but they can't name the race being discriminated against here, because Islam is not a race. But yeah, it is dangerous. I mean, political Islam as a political ideology is dangerous. Again, like, there are plenty, like she said, Muslims can no doubt be decent and noble people. There you go. She has nothing against Muslims. But Islam as as a dangerous ideology, like, it's not wrong. Those Muslims we can cure of the worst elements of their religion's doctrine, or who seek to cure themselves and their fellow Muslims, deserve the full cooperation of the West. This does not and must not mean that we treat suspicion of that religion as automatically unreasonable. She went to a protest and asked feminists to choose Islam or women's rights. Miss Southern visited a women's protest in November 2017, asking attendees, would you rather have women's rights or Islam? When one protester asked why she wasn't asking Muslim women that question, she said their husbands probably didn't let them come. She went to a rape culture protest with a sign saying it doesn't exist. At a slut walk protest in 2015, she held up a sign saying there is no rape culture in the West. She says it's intellectually dishonest to hold this view. Go to Africa and you'll see real rape culture. Men get fired from their jobs just for making rape jokes, not even raping, she says. Newshub. Well, actually, okay, so overview of the article. The Lauren Southern one was actually pretty accurate. It was meant to be a hit piece. You can tell that it was meant to be a hit piece. She didn't take what Lauren Southern actually believed. They didn't talk about her ideology. They just took segments. And because that's the thing, like figuring out what someone actually believes tells you a lot about them, and it requires some research. This woman went through, she found certain opinions that Lauren Southern has that she thought were bad to make Lauren Southern look bad. But most of it, except for the thing in the very beginning about the alt-right group stopping rescuers saving migrants at sea, I don't know if Generation Identity is alt-right or not. I know they're identitarian, so they might be, but I can't say for sure. I don't know too much about them. But this thing on how, like, she was somehow stopping people, she was trying to stop rescue boats, like stopping people from rescuing migrants, that's all, as far as I can tell, totally false. But honestly, if you want to write something about what someone actually believes, instead of just going through things that you find awful, like, just really watch some of their videos. I mean, Lauren Southern doesn't have that many videos. It wouldn't be that hard to go through and actually do some good research and find out what she believes. And the thing is, if you don't want to do the research, then just don't write the article. Simple as that. It's not that hard. But yeah, she didn't do that at all. Most of what she said on Lauren Southern was true. All that was meant to be an insult. It was meant to paint her in a bad light, because you can tell that's what the person actually believes. Although, yeah, like I said, most of it was factually true. I'll give her that. Molyneux's one, for the most part, false. Like, there were a lot of things where, like, again, the racist pseudoscience and stuff like that. Pretty much false. Pretty much a total hit piece. Completely false. This woman is not trying to make the world a better place. This woman's not trying to encourage discussion, and she's just trying to divide people, basically. You have people going out and saying, like, hey, we should be nice to our children, and she's saying bad things about that. She's trying to paint them as terrible people. And the whole thing about the race and IQ thing, like, what she's doing is giving credit to the race and IQ people. Like, she has basically endorsed the race and IQ people. Okay, not endorsed as in she supports them, but endorsed in the sense of she attacked them. She didn't provide any arguments. She just said, hey, this is awful. Just by what he's saying is awful. Which you can tell she hasn't done the research. She hasn't looked into it. She just says it's automatically wrong, because she's not interested in figuring out what people actually believe. I read a Thomas Sowell book that was very good. It's called Civil Rights, Rhetoric, and Reality. I highly encourage you to read it. I think it's 3-minute review number 3. I will leave that in the description as well. But it's a very short book, very easy read. He just said, like, hey, the reason there's such a big issue here with accepting this research is because people are stuck in a false dichotomy. They believe that either everyone is exactly the same, there's no difference between them, She believes that everyone is exactly the same, or that one group must be inferior or superior to the other. Genetically inferior, genetically superior. And that's just not true. Like, a plumber or an electrician, who is more valuable? They're both different. They're both different people. Which one is more valuable? You can't really say. They're both pretty dang valuable. If one's a good plumber, one's a good electrician, they're both valuable. And of course, like, the thing is, she keeps making, I think she's making moral judgments. There is no moral judgment to be made here. Like, IQ, having a high IQ is not a moral thing. It doesn't make you a better person. It means you're more skilled in certain areas. It means you'll be more economically successful. You'll be less likely to be criminally violent. But again, these are all generalizations, and it is not in itself a moral thing. It is not in itself a superior or inferior thing. Now, if the author of the article believes that high IQ is genetically superior, then maybe she is a white nationalist and just doesn't know it yet. Who knows? That could be it. Maybe she's actually a closet white nationalist. Who knows? And of course, I'm not actually saying that seriously. I'm not making that accusation. But who knows? Just saying. But yeah, that's it. So, like the video if you enjoyed. If you know a lot about Lauren Southern and know about exactly what happened on that boat rescue mission thing, if you could clarify that in the comments, I'd greatly appreciate it. I watched the video again beforehand, and I just don't know enough to comment. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Like the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more. If you see people going around saying like, hey, Lauren Southern's a terrible person, Stefan Molyneux's a terrible person, they're racist, they're sexist, or whatever, share this video, or at least find something they actually said from their own mouth and send it to them. But yeah, thanks for watching.